kind of area, I suppose, that we're going to tackle, that we're going to look at, is making more money. Because I think most business owners would quite like to make a little bit more money. I think we'd all quite like to make a little bit more money really. If it was, if it was easy, I don't think many people would turn down a little bit more money. But yeah, I think, for most businesses, this really seems to be the main focus, the constant struggle of balancing out that cash flow and how to drive more clients into the business. And, again, we've all been there, I've absolutely been there in previous businesses and in startup and everything. But for me, making more money is really all about figures. It's very unsexy. It's the thing that no one ever really wants to hear. But it really does come down to knowing your figures. That's your starting place. You've got to know exactly where you're at right now in numbers, because they're black and white and you can't argue with them. There's nothing subjective about them. And you need to know your numbers. So things like you need to know your lifetime customer value, because without that, how do you know how much you can afford to spend to get a client? So lifetime customer value is fairly self-explanatory, but it's the total amount that a client will spend with you over their lifetime, or their lifetime of interaction with your business, more appropriately. Things like knowing your number of customers, so how many customers you currently have in your database. Knowing your profit margins, so again, knowing not how much you can afford to spend to get a customer based on actually how much profit you're making, not on how much money they're bringing into your business, because that's a really surefire way to go bankrupt fast. If actually you think, oh yeah, they spend 100 grand with me a year, so it's fine, but if it costs you 90 grand to deliver that service and you're spending 12 grand to acquire that client, that's not going to be sustainable for very long. So you need to know your profit margins, and you need to know your average customer spend. The reason that we sort of talk about these numbers is that once you have these numbers, you can then start to look at where you're at and start to look at how you can systematically improve them. So your turnover is basically made up of 3 key numbers: the number of customers that are in your business, the number of transactions, the number of times that they spend with you over a year, and the average transaction value. So how much they spend in each transaction with you. Now, for most clients, if we talk about doubling their turnover in the course of a year or something, that seems like quite a daunting prospect. And generally, kind of the go-to thought, or the kind of the place our head initially dies off at, is how am I going to get 100% more customers? Because that's what we naturally assume we have to do to double our turnover. It's actually not true. Because this is how your turnover is made up, you've actually got 3 transactions here. You've got 3 figures that you can adjust. So you would take the focus away from getting 100% more customers, which A, is going to be quite costly and quite time consuming, and B, is going to potentially push your business over capacity. It may be that you can't, if you've got 100 clients now and you're working at 60% capacity, you can't cope with 200 clients, not without putting some extra infrastructure in place and stepping up a level. So it's not even feasible to double your client base. So instead, what we look at is increasing each of these numbers by just 30%. So if we run the maths on it, and I'm going to try and do this very quickly using very simple round figures, and I did pre-work out the answers to this. But let's say at the moment you have 100 clients, and they buy from you 10 times a year, and they spend £100 in each transaction with you. So you basically got 100 clients spending £1,000 with you across a year. That's going to give you a turnover of £100,000. So one option to double your turnover, as I said, is to just go out and acquire 100 new clients. Potentially doable, depending on where you're at capacity-wise and what your marketing funnels are like. That could cost you quite a lot of money. It's probably going to take you quite a lot of time. And as I said, potentially you do need to know where you're at in terms of capacity as to whether your business could even cope with that. So instead, if we just look at increasing each of these numbers by 30%, so we look at getting 30 new clients over the next 12 months, suddenly that doesn't seem quite so daunting. 30 new clients over 12 months, that's 2.5 clients a month. Well, that's doable. That's That's not too bad, is it? So that would give us 130 clients. And then we look at, okay, well, how can we get our client base, our existing client base, to buy from us a little bit more often? So how can you push that number up? So rather than getting them to buy from you 10 times a year, how could you get them to buy from you 13 times a year? It's a bit of an awkward number. I should have chosen better examples, shouldn't I? So we look at getting your clients to buy from you 13 times a year. Again, an increase, it's going to take a bit of thought and a bit of work, but not a massive increase. It's not totally unfeasible. We're not saying, well, let's double the amount they spend with you. And again, we look at how you can increase your transaction value. So what could you do to get your clients spending just £130 with you a time? It's a little bit of an increase, but it's not outrageous. It's not massively undoable. If we run the figures, that gives us a turnover of £219,700. You've more than doubled your turnover, and all you've done is bring in 30 new clients, get them to spend with you a little bit more often, and just increase a little bit on how much they're spending with you, and you have more than doubled your turnover. So this is why I say it's really important to know your numbers, because actually, although for a lot of people, I know spending time looking at figures is very unsexy and it's very non-fun and it's just not what you want to spend your time doing, it actually makes life so much simpler. It starts to actually break down some of that fog and fear around, oh my God, how am I going to do this? This seems like a really insurmountable goal. And it makes it kind of clear and easy, and you actually start to see, okay, just a few small little changes here and there, consistently in the right direction, can make a massive, massive difference over time. And that's really what it's all about. Success is, I can't remember who the quote's by, I think it's Henry Ford? No, can't remember. But there's a quote in a Darren Hardy book that success is basically the effect of small, consistent actions repeated over time. And that's literally what you're looking to do in your business. It's not about massive changes. It's not about doubling things tomorrow. It's about consistent incremental steps forward, so that actually in 12 months' time you could be here rather than here. So I suppose some of the questions in the in the workbook, I think, are around kind of how well do you know your figures? Do you know what your figures are right now? And if you don't, maybe that's one of the things that you could kind of look at when you get home, is getting really clear on those. And then just starting to think about actually how you could increase each of those in your business. Right now, each of those kind of three figures. Yeah, and for some of you, these figures will be really obvious. For someone like me, I've got a really small client base. I don't want to work with more than 10 to 12 clients at any one time. So that's a really easy figure for me to get to grips with. And it also makes it really easy for me to think, okay, well, I don't particularly want to increase it. But if I'm working with 12 clients at the moment, okay, well, I need to get 3 new clients over the next 12 months, and that's a 25% increase. That's going to make a massive difference in my business. That's quite easy. How many times clients buy for you? Again, just so variable depending on what type of your business you're in. Someone like Gareth, you're going to have huge amounts of repeat business, hopefully, so they're going to buy from you really regularly. But someone, I don't know, if you own a bridal shop, for instance, your clients probably aren't going to buy from you all that often. It's pretty much a one-off thing. Well, I don't know, divorce market's quite good, maybe 2 or 3 times in a year if you're lucky, but it's these figures are just so variable, and therefore it's not, this is a slightly simplified example. Like I said, for me, I don't particularly want to increase my client base because I've set my capacity very intentionally, and you might well be in the same place, and therefore you might look at, okay, well, I don't want any more clients, but how can I get them to buy more frequently, or how can I get them to spend more with me? The bridal shop, for example, would really be focusing on this one and not so much on this one, unless they want to branch out into, I don't know, prom dresses or something. Whereas someone like Gareth or, I don't know, Milkman, do Milkman still exist? I don't know. They have a lot of repeat business, and they're going to have weekly or daily clients. I don't think I've ever used them. I don't really know how that works. Daily clients, I suppose, for a lifetime, being as long as the client lives within their catchment area. Okay, so there are kind of 2 elements with this I want to follow through. I'll go off on tangents that. One of the things with this particularly, this looking to attract new clients, for me there are a couple of really, really easy strategies that are often very overlooked. There's so much pressure out there as business owners to be trying 1,000,001 different marketing strategies all the time. So how many of you over the last, I don't know, year have felt the pressure that you should be blogging, you should be writing a book, and you should be creating videos, and you should be going networking, and you probably should be running your own events, and you should be setting up strategic partnerships as well, and you got your website, got your SEO up, how's your PPC, how's your Facebook advertising campaign going? You can't do it all. Or you can do it all and you will work 80 hours and burn out. And you'll probably do none of it very well. There are 1,000,001 ways to drive new clients into your business, and that's fantastic. And there will come a stage where you will want to and should try each of them. And when you do try them, it is all about test, measure, review. Test small, measure your results. When you know it works, get bigger. But for me, one of the first things that I will do when I sit down with clients who are maybe in a place where they're needing to bring new clients in fast, look at your existing client base. What works? Look at your existing client pathways and look at of everything that you're doing, of everything you're so busy filling your time with, where did the clients that actually spend with you right now come from? What was that pathway? And then your first step, double it, triple it. Forget everything else. And again, this is where I say knowing your numbers becomes so important. You have to know your client pathways, because otherwise you will end up busy and not seeing the results that you want to. And actually it's all about tracking those figures as they come in, looking at who's coming from where, what return are you getting from each marketing spend and each marketing channel. You know, for me, this is again something that my own coach called me on last summer. I was working harder than I wanted to work, and I was complaining to him about this. And I was like, I'm not quite there yet. And we basically looked at, you know, I was trying to vlog, and I was trying to create content, and I was trying to do all of these things that I felt like I should be doing. And actually, he kind of, you know, he called me on it. He said, well, your existing clients, where did they come from? And I said, oh, well, face to face, because what I do is relationships. My business is a relationship business. I said, so they came face to face. They either came through an event that I ran, or they predominantly came through networking. And he was like, oh, okay. So why are you blogging? How many clients has blogging got you? I was like, well, none, but I should be doing it, shouldn't I? And it was like this reality check. So actually for the next 12 weeks, 8 weeks, I filled my diary with meetings. That's all I did. I met clients, sat down with them, I gave them, you know, 2 hours of my time to experience a coaching session with me, doubled my business in 8 weeks. It works, because that's what works for me, because that's where I'm at my best, is one-to-one, face-to-face. And it was so simple. It was already there. I was already doing it. I just was trying to do everything else as well. And really, high performance is all about having that laser focus to say, actually, this is what works. This is where I'm in flow. This is where I perform at my best, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to forget about everything else. It's having that, you know, if you look at, I don't know, it's like looking at an athlete. You know, Usain Bolt runs. He's not also trying to do javelin and long jump. He just runs because that's what he's great at, and that's what he's built his career around. Chances are, if he'd spent the beginning parts of his career trying to do all of it, he wouldn't be quite such the great runner that he is now. So yeah, so that's really the kind of my first key takeaway for you. And again, it's so simple. You already know it's already there. It's just to look at where your existing clients come from, and how can you double that straight away, or triple that, or quadruple that, and what maybe hasn't produced a client yet that you could let go of in the short term. And it's not that you won't come back to all those things. You know, I am now at a stage where I'm blogging again, and I write articles for international magazines and things, but I'm doing that because I love it. I actually really enjoy writing, and I do it for me as much as for anyone who reads it. And I'm also at a place where I can do that. You know, you reach the place where you're where you want to be, and then you kind of have the luxury of saying, oh, okay, well, I'll test some things. And again, that's where test, measure, review. If it doesn't work, don't keep doing it unless you love it. And you'll get to that place. But if you're not there yet, you don't really yet have that luxury. And it's not to say don't try anything new. If none of your existing pathways work, then obviously you need to try something new. But I suppose my point is, for most of my clients, when we sit down and we drill down into it, it's like, actually, there is something that's working, and we just need to spend a lot more time and focus and energy on getting them to do more of that. The other thing that for me is really, really paramount is there's a principle called Pareto's principle, also known as the 80-20 principle, which basically states that 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your efforts. Don't know why it works. It's one of those weird mathematically proven concepts. It's completely bizarre, but that is generally proven to be the case. So if a farmer sows 100 seeds, then generally 80% of his crops will come from just 20% of those seeds. It does refine down even further, so in some cases it will go as far as like 95.5. It's something that you can continue refining on. But what that tells me is that the chances are 80% of your income right now, 80% of your turnover, is probably coming from about 20% of your client base. And that, again, that's holds true for most businesses. We all have those amazing clients where it's easy. It's not really hard work. It sort of just happens. It just flows. It clicks, and they're your great clients. And then we all have the other end of the spectrum. We all have those very difficult clients who take ages to make a buying decision. They want loads of your time, and they want loads of support. And they're the ones that call your customer helpline 15 times a day. And generally, that's kind of the 80-20 principle at work. So chances are, as much as 80% of your results, of your turnover, are coming from about 20% of your client base. Vice versa, probably 80% of your problems and your stress and your hassle are also coming from 20% of your client base. So this is again something that I really, really look at with my one-to-one clients. Is I get them to look at their client base and profile them. So create some avatars, create some profiles, and get really, really clear on, okay, who are my top 20? So if we've got 100 customers, chances are that 20 of those customers are producing £80,000 of their turnover a year. So we get them clear on that. We start looking at, okay, well actually who does spend well with you? Who are your big spenders? Who are the ones that buy from you regularly, pay you easily, pay you on time? They're really good clients. And actually, who are the bottom 20% that are just a nightmare to work with? And you're sort of doing it because you're a little bit scared to fire them. And we look at that, we get them profiling their client base, your client base. So I would really, really encourage you to do that. And the other thing that gets really interesting, really exciting for me, if you're a geek like me, is when you start to apply the 80-20 principle to the doubling your turnover equation. So obviously the previous thing, we're assuming that all clients spend equally. We're using averages. So we're assuming that you have 100 clients who all spend exactly the same amount every time and who buy with exactly the same frequency. Obviously that's not realistic. So what we can do is start to apply the 80-20 principle and get really clear on actually who are our top 20%, and then apply this 30% rule, the 30% increase rule, purely to that top 20%. So what that does is, so I had to work these numbers out before, and it took me a shockingly long time to work this out, a bit of a brain freeze moment. So if 20 of your customers are responsible for £80,000 of your turnover, that means you've got 20 customers. We'll assume they do still spend 10 times a year. We'll assume you've got a fixed business in that sense. But that means that these top 20 customers probably spend £400 per transaction, rather than your other 80 customers, probably spend much, much less than that. So if we use those figures and then we apply this 30% increase, actually if we just focus our efforts on bringing that to 26 customers, a 30% increase in your top 20% customers, so you've only got to bring in 6 new clients, but they have got to be 6 great clients, which means you've got to know what a great client looks like, where they've come from, what they want from you, how to get to them. And again, chances are a lot of these customers came through a similar pathway, because the chances are they're quite similar in what they're looking for from you. So what we find is when we start to create profiles, people do tend to fit into avatars and things within your business. So you'll probably find a commonality between your top 20% of clients. You're probably equally, less so actually in the bottom 20%. They're just not the top 20%. That's what they have in common. But yeah, so if we look at this, so we look at, okay, we're just going to focus on the top 20%. So you're going to forget about 80 of your clients. You're going to keep them ticking over. That's fine. Keep doing what you're doing. But you're not particularly looking to increase what you're doing with them or give them significantly more time. You just focus on these top 20%. So 30% increase, so you need to bring in 6 new customers, 6 top 20% customers, so 6 great new customers. And then you look at, okay, well, they spend £400, not quite a month, they spend £400 10 times a year with me at the moment. So what would you have to do to get those guys to pay £520? They're already spending 400, so they already like what you do compared to everyone else who's probably spending 100. They're paying 4 times what everyone else is paying to work with you. So what is it that you're doing for them that's really working, and how could you increase that? Like, actually, maybe they're an amazing values fit for you. They just absolutely buy into you, your culture, and what you give them, and therefore you're actually just undercharging because you haven't recognised that. It could be as simple as a price increase, which again, something I find clients are very reluctant to do. But yeah, just looking at, okay, well, they already spent 400, how can I get that up to 520? And it's not a massive increase. It is, and it isn't. Do you know what I mean? It depends on what those top 20% are like. And then we look at, okay, well, how can we get them to spend that with us 13 times a year? So what can I do? Maybe you create a program, maybe you create a package, maybe you structure your delivery slightly different in a way that really encourages them to say, well, hey, do you know what? Actually, if you join this program, you get to work with me for 13 days a year rather than 10. And actually what that will give you is 20 times more value in how much your business moves forward. I'm using kind of myself as a bit of an example there, but that gives you a turnover basically of 175,760. You've still got your 20 grand from your existing 80 customers that you're not really worrying too much about. And again, that brings your turnover up to 195,760. That's without even touching 80 of your customers. That's without even you've only got to change what you're doing for 20% of your client base. You've just got to bring in 6 new clients. That's it, just 6. How easy is that over 12 months? That's 1 every 2 months. And that for me is again where the figures start to get really exciting. It doesn't have to be about massive figures or massive increases. It's just about looking at where those sweet spots are and how to kind of manipulate your figures. I don't like that word, but in this context it fits. How to manipulate your figures to really make them work for you, to really get to where you need to be as quickly as you can get there without having to work insanely hard. So that's kind of, a little bit about ways to start to increase your double your turnover, potentially. Not all of you will have the goal to double your turnover. I'm using it as a kind of an arbitrary example. But it does work. One of my clients has doubled his turnover in the last 12 months through, not just through that, but through a couple of different strategies that we'll be talking about. So if we now look at kind of each of those three figures in turn, and just look at, okay, well, how could I get 30% more customers? Or how could I get 30% more of my top 20 customers? Top 20% customers, sorry. There are 2 ways, so there are 3 ways. One I've already told you about. Look at what's working and just double it. Do more of that and you will get more customers. It's as simple as that. The second strategy that for me, again, is so easy and it's so often overlooked by business owners. It's really kind of, we all know we should be doing it. What I'm about to say will not come as a shock to you. You're not going to be like, oh my God, I've never heard of that. She's reinventing the wheel here. Ask for referrals. So simple, so easy to do, and so easy not to do. Again, with all of my clients, it's a case of, okay, well, are you doing it? Do you have a system in place for it? Is it part of your process? Can you ensure that you ask every client for a referral, not just when you remember, or not just ad hoc? I do want to actually caveat that slightly. Don't ask your shit clients for referrals because they will probably refer more shit clients. Ask your good clients for referrals. So that's my only caveat. They're the only ones you're allowed to get away with it on. But yeah, so simple. Ask for referrals. If you're not doing it at the moment and you have a client base of 100 clients, and I said to you, right, get in touch with all of them. Pick up the phone, speak to them face to face. Don't do it via email, but have a conversation with them and say, hey, I really love working with you. I'm really, really enjoying it. Just out of interest, who do you know that might be interested in ... Just ask and then stop. Don't fill the silence. Just wait. Give them a chance to actually think of an answer the question. And you will be amazed if you're not doing it already. Chances are, if you've got 100 clients and you go out and you speak to them tomorrow, by this time next week, I reckon you could have 30 new clients. And that's step one done. No work, no marketing, well, small amount of work, 100 conversations. You might be a bit hoarse by the end of it, but no marketing costs. It's free, it's easy. Why wouldn't you do this if you're not doing it already? And not only are referrals just a fantastic channel into your business, they're also a great way of boosting your lifetime customer value. So if, for example, we look at like the bridal shop, well, their clients buy from them, as I said, divorce aside, their clients buy from them once in a lifetime. So what can they do to boost their lifetime customer value? Well, actually, they can ask for referrals. If you ask every bride for a referral, and your average bride actually might give you, I'm generalising massively, but generally, lots of people tend to get married around a similar sort of age, which means if you do an exceptional job and you deliver exceptional customer service and you make that bride feel like the most beautiful woman on the planet in the gown of her dreams for her special day, she's going to tell people about you. And actually, when her bridesmaid announces in 3 months' time, oh, Johnny's just proposed, she'll be like, oh, I know you should go for your wedding dress. Ask for referrals and keep in touch with them. It's not just about, in this example, it's not just about that minute right there. Quite often people might come back and say, oh, I don't know anyone, I can't think of anyone. That's fine. Ask again in 3 months' time. Just go back to them. Make it part of your relationship building. You should be looking to build really strong relationships with your clients regardless. It's just another way to build that relationship, to have some honest kind of communication with them. And it's just, more often than not, it's just being afraid not to ask for it. I find people feel a little bit like shy about, for want of a better word. They kind of feel a bit like, oh, I don't know, is it okay? Does it not seem a little bit desperate? It doesn't. People love to help. Like if they genuinely love what you've done, actually in one of the training videos I did for my mastermind group, I was kind of talking about this, and we were talking about delivering exceptional customer service, and I used kind of the example again of a bridal shop, and again, if you want more customers, just deliver exceptional customer service and people will talk about you. But I talked about, okay, well, if you're a bridal shop, what could you do to really make an impact? And maybe again, it depends on customer spend and how much you have to spend, how much profit there is there available. But how much would it cost you to send a really beautiful bouquet of flowers to the bride the morning of her wedding? Chances are you've had a chat with her while she's buying her gown, while she's having fittings. You probably know where she's getting married. You probably know quite a lot of details about her. She's probably tattering away at 100 miles an hour because she's got it all running through her head and she's trying to manage it. So actually, if you pay attention and you listen to what she's saying and you ask a little bit about, maybe the colour scheme of the wedding or what her favourite flowers are, and you have her address because she's a customer, so hopefully you have your customer details. If you sent her a really beautiful bouquet of flowers at 10 a.m. the morning of her wedding, just to say, we really hope the dress is perfect for you today. We know you spent loads of money on this. This is your big day. I really hope it makes you feel as special as you wanted it to feel. Here are just some flowers to say thank you so much for coming with us. We hope it does everything you want it to be, and if you need anything in the future, you know where we are. How big an impact is that going to make? How nice is that? And that probably costs like, what, 20 quid to get a bunch of flowers delivered? It's nothing. It's 10 minutes to order it and make a note. And how much difference do you think that's then going to make when granted, it's her wedding day, she's probably got a lot going through her head, but it's going to make her feel great. It's going to start her day off amazingly. It's a really nice, unexpected treat. It's going to make her feel really special. How many people do you think she's going to tell about that at the wedding reception when she's going around the tables and everyone's like, oh, I love your dress, you look so beautiful? Because that's what we do, maybe not the men, but it's what the women do. We comment on the dress, it's all about the dress. How many people do you think she's going to say, oh yeah, it's amazing. Do you know what? They did the sweetest thing. They sent me a bunch of flowers this morning and it's just, amazing. Such a lovely touch for them to do. I was so surprised. How much is that going to increase your referrals? If she's then telling all of her guests about that, how many of her guests are potentially getting married? Again, bearing in mind that we tend to get married at similar life stages, not always. Chances are, maybe one or two of her guests are engaged. are looking for a wedding dress and they think, oh, that's amazing, I want to go there, I want to be sent the flowers on my wedding day, that sounds great. Little things like that, you know, for the sake of 20 quid and just doing, and it's going to make you feel great as well, delivering exceptional customer service, knowing that you're doing the best thing that you can do for your clients is going to make you feel great as well, and is going to make asking for referrals so much easier. If you've gone that extra mile for them and you've done that for them, you're not going to think twice about picking up the phone in 2 weeks' time and saying, hey, how was the honeymoon? Was the dress perfect? We just want to, you know, check, get a bit of feedback from you. Would you mind giving us a little quick testimonial? Because we'd love to put that on our website. If you want to send us a picture of you in the dress, we'd love to put that on our website as well. Oh, and by the way, who else do you know that's getting married in the next 6 months or the next year or the next, however far ahead people buy wedding dresses? You can tell I'm not married, can't you? And just pause, give her a minute to think about it. Oh, actually, yeah, my cousin Jane just got engaged. Oh yeah, okay, well, I'll put you guys in touch. Perfect. Suddenly you've doubled that lifetime customer value from that one customer. Potentially, if you can get 1 or 2 referrals, you're doubling or tripling their lifetime customer value just by asking. So yeah, for me, that's one of the things that I really, really like to focus in on is ask for referrals. They are so powerful, and also better quality generally. You know, we all know the kind of like, know, trust philosophy around getting people to do business with us. Anything that comes through a referral already has social proof, already has a relationship. And the clients have already worked with you, they get your values, they inherently understand what a client should experience from working with you. So they will tend to refer people that, without consciously doing it, they'll kind of subconsciously know who's probably going to be a good fit for you and who's maybe not. And that will kind of play out as well. So they tend to be much better quality clients that get sent your way. So there are so many reasons for asking for referrals. I can't kind of stress it enough. And the other thing that I just wanted to touch on was looking for referral partners. You know, again, it's another sort of extension of that, but actually, who already has your clients? And how can you get to them? If you're great at what you do, and you can show someone else who already has your clients that you're filling a need that their client has, that you're delivering exceptional service, why wouldn't they promote people to you? Whether, you know, some people obviously do an incentivized, so you might pay them 10% of any clients that come your way. Some people do it mutually. It kind of just depends on the setup. But actually, again, you know, one of my clients has literally doubled his business in the last 12 months because we've really focused in on this. And we've just looked at, okay, you want to start working with bigger clients, and you want to get to a stage where you're not out there kind of hustling all the time to get clients. We want to get clients coming to you. Well, how can we do that? Who already has your clients? How can we get people to send clients your way? And it's working amazingly. His phone rings almost every day now. It's so powerful. And it, you know, again, it's something that does take a little bit of work up front. It takes a little bit of kind of finding the right people, getting out of your comfort zone, being prepared to go out there and ask them. But it works. You know, it's worth it if in 6 months' time you can sit back and the phone just rings, the clients just come to you because people know you're great at what you do and their clients need you. So the second figure that we're going to look at was obviously increasing the number of transactions. This one can be a little bit harder. Again, it's very business, it's very client dependent. So there's, maybe being a little bit more creative in this, but again, just some of the things I want to kind of touch on are CRM systems, customer relationship management. If you don't have one, get one. And it doesn't, it doesn't have to be like a big fancy system, but basically what I'm saying is communicate with your clients, build relationships. Again, I see a lot of small business owners who get really, really focused and kind of like, what's it called? Blinkered. On continually bringing new clients into their business, and that's kind of what they think they constantly have to do. And absolutely, a stream of new clients in is important, but it is just as important, if not more important, to actually maintain your relationships with your existing clients. Like you said, reselling to existing clients, getting existing clients to buy from you a little bit more often, to come back to you if they've maybe kind of reached a natural break point. Maybe they were on a contract, they came to the end of that contract and you've let it lie for 6 months, but then going back to them and saying, hey, are you ready for the next contract? Are you ready for the next project, the next, whatever it is for you? Because you've already paid to get those customers. Every customer costs you money. Every customer has a cost, whether, even if Even if it's a low cost, generally if they're low cost, it tends to involve a lot of time, and if you put a value on your time, it's actually quite high cost. So every client has cost you money to bring them in, and I see so many businesses that just don't communicate often enough with their existing clients. Their clients actually maybe really like them, their clients maybe really want to work more with them, but the business just isn't really communicating. Again, quite often the business owners get a little bit too busy. They can be quite hard to reach, they can be quite hard to get to, and I have seen it happen where you have a client that, you know, that really wants to work with someone, and I just never answer this bloody phone. I just can't get to the guy. So they go and find someone else. And actually you think, well, you paid to get them and you have a relationship with them. They've already bought from you. They already have that neural pathway that they are comfortable spending money with you because they've done it. Actually, your time would be much better spent retaining that client than spending, I don't know, 5 hours out networking to get the next client. So yeah, just kind of getting your communication with your clients systemized and regular, and making sure that you are touching base with them often enough, whether that's a CRM system, whether that's just a really good diary system, particularly in the early stages. To be honest, the diary system is fine as long as you diarise it, as long as you remember to actually put it in. What you don't want to do is end up having to flip back through scrolls and scrolls of Excel spreadsheets to look at who you need to contact. That doesn't work very well. It's boring, no one wants to do that, and so you tend not to do it, and then suddenly 3 months goes by and you're like, oh yeah, shit, I haven't really spoken to anyone. So making sure that you're communicating with your clients often enough, you know, something as simple as that can be a way to increase the number of transactions by that 30% in a year. You know, if you've got clients that currently buy from you twice a year, if you literally just, you know, drop them an email every now and again, and a personalised email. I'm not even necessarily talking about email newsletters. They are great and they have a place, but I'm really talking about personal relationships where you just say, hey, how are you? How's the dog? Last time I spoke to you, he was in and out of the vets. How's he doing? Something as simple as that, where people really feel like you really know them and you really care. If you can get them to buy with you 3 times a year instead of 2, just because you dropped them an email every 12 weeks, that's an increase of 50% in the number of transactions. So again, it doesn't have to be massively complicated. It's often the really simple stuff that is the stuff that gets overlooked, because we all feel like it has to be complicated and it has to be really hard, and it doesn't. And then a 30% increase in the transaction value. Again, this is one where people tend to be a little bit more resistant to it. It's just natural that we all have a little bit of kind of fear and resistance around pricing and charging and sales. One of the easiest ways to do this is to raise your prices annually. Again, it is something that small business owners are either reluctant to do, kind of intentionally overlooking it, or they just genuinely forget to do it. Yeah, it's a really easy way to increase your prices by 5% a year, 10% a year. There's an instant 5%, 10% more profit. Yeah, so sometimes you kind of realise that, yeah, you've gotten maybe a little bit caught in your own sort of mind space of this is all I can charge, and actually someone else comes along and kind of smashes it, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, if you can do it, I know I'm better at you than this, so I can definitely do this. So yeah, an annual price rise, you know, it should be standard. It should be something that you can communicate to your clients easily. Most clients will expect an annual price rise. Inflation goes up every year. Why shouldn't your prices? And yeah, again, don't compete on price, compete on quality. So know what your USPs are, know what you're delivering. You do want your clients to aspire to work with you. You know, I am not the cheapest coach in the world, and there is a reason for that, because I don't want to work with people that want the cheapest coach in the world. That doesn't interest me. And it's the other thing to look at is, if you're looking to boost transaction value, what else could you offer? So can you create like a bundle of products? Could you upsell something? Could you do a joint venture with someone else? Maybe your clients, maybe you take them this far, and then from there they're going to have a need for this, this and this. Well, what partners could you bring in where you say, well, actually I'm going to take you here, but then we can also offer you this, this and this through our partners, and increase transaction value that way, and earn some commission through that. And again, referral partners, joint ventures, that's where that all comes in.